participating in the foundational practice of Krishna consciousness, which is chanting Krishna's holy names, as is specifically recommended by the founder of our Sampradaya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who himself daily chanted Hare Kṛṣṇa mantra in Vrindavan at Imlital. And this morning, I just bring up a scientific aspect of the chanting that Prabhupada mentions. It's in relationship to the creation and the principle of creation. Prabhupada speaks the following in a lecture. The beginning of the creation is sound. The modern physicists also agree. Sound and light, according to their theory. But the sound is the origin of creation, mixed with the three modes of nature. Everything here in the material world is a spiritual reflection covered by material elements. So when the sound is purified, or you catch up the spiritual sound, then your spiritual life begins. As from material sound, material creation has begun. First of all, from the sky, nabha, or ether, and from ether, air is created, and from air, fire, electricity. Similarly, from sound, there is immediately these various expansion of elements. This is Panchabhuta, the five gross elements. It's coming from the subtle elements. From subtle elements, the gross elements gradually develop. And Prabhupada extends that in another purport in the second count of the Bhagavatam, where he mentions that every manifestation here in the world begins with sound, and then he goes on to say that the manifestation of, or the growth of one's spiritual practice comes from sound also. And that's synonymous with, he gives the example of building a skyscraper, that you first start with a thought, that you want to build it, then you start talking about it. He says the elements are already there and they all come together while you're talking about it. And he said similarly, by spiritual sound vibration, then all spiritual paraphernalia necessary for your advancement will come together as well. And therefore, by very deliberately chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa and purifying the consciousness, one's consciousness by that process, then there's a natural way in which one's spiritual life evolves. And one last point is that the mood of chanting is important, because Krishna is the Paramātmā, the Supersoul within everyone's heart, and he's fulfilling the desires of all living beings. So it's not some mechanical process, because the material nature is malleable, and one might exploit it for one's own purposes, and in which case Krishna can make such an arrangement. But if we sincerely desire to serve Krishna and we chant with that intention, Krishna very quickly delivers the spiritual paraphernalia necessary. So it's chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa. It's also in the mood of surrender to Krishna, which is the smartest thing any living entity can do after striking out. A baseball term, I don't know what you have in cricket, but after striking out billions of times and finally decides to surrender to Krishna. So if we chant with that mood, then Lord Chaitanya said, it is utterances which are now coined as the Shikshashtakam Param Vijayate, Sri Krishna Sankirtan, that will have complete success. So it's worthwhile cause to take time to chant in the mood of surrender the Hare Kṛṣṇa Maha Mantra. Om Tat Sat. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta. Let's just take a couple minutes for some reflections. Yes? Krishna Dev. Microphones.
Hare Krishna. So I have a question. So someone told me that if one simply follows the regulated principles and chants the given number of mantra japa by their guru and not commit Vaishnava aparadh, they will progress in bhakti easily. And the direct result of Vaishnava aparadh is losing taste and inability to focus on chanting and bhajan. So what consists Vaishnava aparadh? Why is it so grave, and how can we avoid it or come back from it? That's the first question.
This is mentioned by Lord Shiva to Parvati. That's what's most dear to Krishna is tadiya, those things related to Krishna. And Krishna's life and soul is his devotees. So you can think of an analogy that if you have someone that's very dear to you, like a pet, and somebody abuses your pet or even looks at him the wrong way, you might take exception. So devotees are very dear to Krishna, and if we offend them, then Krishna takes it personally, because they're the closest thing to his heart. And what constitutes Vaishnava aparadh is malice. If one accidentally offends a Vaishnava, then Vaishnavas forgive very easily, but if there's a sense of malice towards Vaishnavas, then it's more serious. And so we should be careful to respect Vaishnavas. If there's some that we don't resonate with, that's okay. We just show respect from a distance. Is that okay? Okay. We have 2 more minutes. Would anybody like to reflect? Yes.
I wanted to ask you this question that what inspires you the most to chant Hare Krishna?
Seeing all of you here. I often mention Lord Chaitanya sitting at Imlital. Jai Shri Tulsi Maharani ki Jai. There's a lot of things. I remember hearing the Hare Kṛṣṇa Maha Mantra for the first time and thinking it sounded otherworldly. I don't know what it was, but it caught my attention. And I've always been fascinated by it. And I like how Lord Chaitanya used to chant. He'd go to Imlital when he was in Vrindavan. He'd walk from a Kurgat and he'd just sit down and chant. I like to think of Lord Chaitanya chanting, because nobody's cooler than Lord Chaitanya. Hare Krishna. One more. Yes, Ekachakra.
You mentioned this is a scientific process, and I was thinking it's wonderful that a lot of the mundane scientists would reject what we're doing because they rely on the ascending process. And but what we're doing is actually true science, because it's the descending process from a higher authority. And what they're doing is actually the mental speculation and the sentimentality that they say we are. And I find it interesting. And I was reading last night that Prabhupada said even the dancing is scientific. So true science means to feel that love and to dance and to sing in front of the deities, whereas the atheistic, mundane scientists think it's the absolute opposite, think that's the farthest from science. I just thought that was kind of interesting.
It is interesting. And it's an important topic to distinguish ascending from descending and the possibilities in each one of them. That's something that the Sri Upanishad discusses. Anyadeva hur vidyaya, anyara hur avidyaya. Iti shushumadhiranam yenas tadvid shakshire. There's some kinds of knowledge that are actually ignorance because they depend on the senses which are limited. But if the unlimited wants to reveal himself to the limited, then that's his prerogative to do so. And that's a part of science that's not necessarily discussed because there's not a sense of a higher entity. There's a sense of no entity, anatma. There's no soul, there's no person, actually, it's just a chemical interaction. There's a lot to be said about that, and it's a very important topic. Thank you for bringing it up. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Shri Lakshmana Shringadev. If you so desire, please always let us remember your lotus feet and continue with the process of pure devotional service despite any inconveniences created by us living in a material body here in Silicon Valley or anywhere nearby, or anywhere else for that matter, in the cosmic manifestation. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part. Please unmute and say Hare Kṛṣṇa.
Hare Kṛṣṇa.
Vaisesika Dasa.
Hare Kṛṣṇa.
Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.